It's Fun Friday already. Ryan D. Leaf is not on the show right now. Is this two Wednesday and Friday shows now consecutively without the boss man? Yeah. Are we too upset about it? Of course we're upset about it. Why? Because it's the Ryan D. Leaf show. But you know why you don't have to fret? Why you shouldn't worry? Because the boys got you covered here on Fun Friday. Sky Guasco, Charlie Moss, Jonathan Rifkind with you here for all of your Fun Day Friday action. Guys, the draft was last night. The NBA were like, I don't know, something like 12 games, 8 games away from the season being over. MLB is in full swing. I mean, it's almost like a collision. If you're following the Champions League, that just wrapped up. The MLS is heading into its season. Um, the National Women's Soccer League just started their season. I mean, we're at a sports eclipse right now. We're obviously not going to talk about some of the aforementioned um, happenings in the world of sports, but there's some prominent headlines and what have yous that have been going on that we definitely need to get to, guys. And obviously, the most prominent is that draft last night. We had a live reaction show. Charlie was there in spirit and also in the comment section. Sky went full coverage mode, full Adam Schefter mode, and just decided that after 10, we did our 10 picks on the RDL show that he was going to go and be live for the rest of the first round, which ended up, I think, ending after midnight East Coast time. So quite
Yeah,
an
it
event
was a
last
late one.
night. Yeah, it was definitely a late one. And as I grow into my mid 20s here and become hopefully a respectable member of society, I realize how hard it is for me to stay up even on the West Coast that late. Meanwhile, Charlie's probably athletic brewing it up at 2 a.m. on in Indiana. So we'll get to our surprises, maybe winners and losers, narratives, all that good stuff. We'll also thank our sponsors, and we'll get you ready for a weekend of fun around the sports universe. Guys, I guess we'll just jump right into it. Ryan, by the way, the boss man will be joining us somewhere between 1 and 1:15 is what I'm told. That specific time. Whether or not this comes to fruition, we'll figure it out. But he's been hosting Rich Eisen's show. Rich Eisen, of course, hosting the NFL Draft on NFL Network, which apparently, in my opinion, actually has better coverage than what we saw on ESPN. We do have a question of the day. Who was the biggest surprise in round one? Let us know in the comments. Please rate, review, and subscribe on Believe the Podcasting Network as well. Simulcast it onto YouTube. Hit us up on Twitter, Instagram, and I guess I feel like I don't know. Sky was around during MySpace. Maybe he has a MySpace still. Charlie doesn't even know
Um,
what MySpace
well,
is.
here's
I know
here's
I
the
know what
issue.
MySpace is.
Here's the issue with MySpace. I did have a MySpace account. It was fire. My top 8 was always up to date. My top song was anywhere from Tupac to Linkin Park to Tech Nine. I mean, I was all over the board. So I was up to date on my MySpace. The problem is, I also am a musician in my other life, and I recorded a bunch of music back in the day, and I put all those on MySpace. The problem is, I can't access it anymore. It's so archaic at this point. My logins, which I do know, no longer work. I can't access my MySpace, nor can I get the old school pictures or the audio tracks off of there. So there's some 2004
Yeah,
versions of my music floating in the abyss that I can no longer get to, and I'm very upset about it now that you bring it up. Thanks for firing me up on this Friday here about my
yeah. I'm just trying to
MySpace
get the
account.
juices flowing. I feel like we were a
My
little
juices are
lethargic.
flowing, dude. Last night was epic. I had 4 hours of coverage of the NFL. My juices are already rolling, man. I'm ready to go.
Before we get to that, you mentioned Tech Nine. That's a name I grew up with. A couple of Tech Nines on Worldwide Choppers is still the craziest song I've ever heard. I don't know if you're familiar.
Phenomenal. Anybody like
Phenomenal song.
double tongue rapping?
Yeah,
Worldwide
seriously,
choppers.
in like 18 different languages. It's pretty
Yep.
insane. It featured. It has it's Twista. It's pretty solid lineup of guys for Tech Nine there. Anyways, let's talk about football because I feel like that's the epitome of today's show. Last night there was the NFL draft in Cleveland. It was quite fun. The first four picks, I don't want 1, 2, and 4 went as expected. Number 3 took us for a bit of a whirlwind, and Sky is our 49ers fan in residence here. Why don't you take us through the emotion of, 49ers on the clock, Goodell is walking out on stage, and you just hold your breath. Walk us through that, and then finally you hear the name that isn't Mac Jones picked.
Well, holding your breath is exactly what happened. I'm up here in Eugene, Oregon at this point, but I felt the collective Bay Area family just kind of still for 2 minutes. You and I and Ryan, as you mentioned, were doing the live stream here last night, covering it in the moment. And I literally don't think I spoke for about 10 minutes while the pick was coming up after the Jets took Zach Wilson. I just had nothing to say. I didn't really know what to react. And I've been adamant that I wanted the 49ers to go with Justin Fields. Myself, Ryan, you guys believe that Justin Fields is the number 2 quarterback in this draft. However, Trey Lance, in my opinion, is an absolutely phenomenal complimentary pick there if we don't get Justin Fields. And I just didn't want it to be Zach or Mac Jones. So comes up, makes the pick, and I was kind of relieved, not as excited as I thought I would be because I was hoping for Justin Fields. But the reality is I set expectations for myself. Therefore, I was quote unquote let down, which I try not to actually do, but it was hard not to. I've had the 3 hours after that to do the rest of the draft. I had all of last night, talked to a bunch of my 49er faithful, and came around to it. And this morning, I woke up fired up to have Trey Lance. Not only is he a great athlete, great quarterback. Yes, he had minimal work at North Dakota State. 17. He only had 17 games in college. Didn't only played one game last year. However, phenomenal season in 2019. Also, just a great character guy. And I really appreciate that. Listening to multiple interviews with him, he was on Eisen right before that Dan Patrick show, and I watched those interviews before the draft. And just a well-connected, well-mannered young man. And I'm excited to have him on the team. I think he's going to fit well. And the reality is, I trust Kyle Shanahan. I trust John Lynch. I wanted Justin Fields, but that's why those guys are in the office and I'm not. They see something special in Trey Lance. Apparently, Trey Lance was the guy all along that they moved up to number 3 for. It was not Mac Jones. I still don't know where the Mac Jones hype came from. It's because his pro day ended the same day. So the media made it Mac Jones. It wasn't Mac Jones all along. Trey Lance to the 49ers makes sense. I love the pick. He's a little bit raw. But if we keep Jimmy for the season, or at least half the season, him learning that system, I think he's going to be good, fast, and I'm hoping to get Dak Prescott out of him. And if we do, I would be absolutely thrilled.
Charlie, why'd you have that look?
I didn't understand. I didn't understand the analogy for a second. I thought he was like literally asking for Dak Prescott, not that Trey Lance would turn into Dak Prescott. So it took me a second.
Yeah, I'm cool with the pick. Being there to experience it with you. The funny thing is that we were going off of Ryan's stream, but I believe that you and I were actually ahead of him. And I remember that. I mean, there were a few later that I think we both reacted to a little prematurely because he just wasn't there yet. But that Trey Lance pick was, I remember seeing the pick on the TV and knowing that Ryan was about 2 or 3 seconds behind. And I think you and I were probably pretty similarly matched up because I think I saw a reaction. You just had this massive exhale and your entire body language changed. You seemed so relaxed.
I tried not to react, but I just I couldn't hold my breath any longer. And I was like,
and you're like, oh, if Ryan sees me, I'm gonna ruin it for him.
Yeah. So I didn't cover my mouth. I didn't throw my hands up. I didn't bet. I just sat there stoic, and then he read the call, and then I kind of.
You were stoic. I like that. That adjective to describe your demeanor at that.
However, I'll say this. I know we're going to go through the draft. We're going to go through surprise. We've got a lot of draft coverage to talk to. While we're on this pick, though, and Mac Jones comes up in conversation, I didn't like him for the 49ers. I've gone into detail on that on my podcast, on this show. However, I think he's a great fit in New England. I really do. I think he's a great fit in New England. Ryan hosting the Rich Eisen show this morning for his 7th time this year, guys. That's big boy. Shouts out to the boss getting the nod from Rich Eisen. 7 times this year he's filled in when Rich is away at the NFL draft. But Ryan had mentioned too that he's a more successful quarterback than Tom Brady in college, coming in similar style quarterback, cerebral, similar attributes and skill sets into the same system. And of course, there's the tweet of the body types and everything going around and whatever. And I don't jump into that because I'm not into body shaming or commenting, but it's similarities there. And I'm not saying Mac Jones is going to win 1 or 6 championships in New England, but I do think he's similar to what Tom Brady was when he came in, more decorated with the national championship with Alabama, and frankly, a great fit in New England. Didn't like him in San Francisco. I think he's great in New England. So overall, I think it's a win-win for the 49ers and Mac Jones going separate ways.
I agree. So backtracking really quickly here. So Lawrence went 1, no surprise. Wilson went 2, no surprise. Ryan made the point that he doesn't think we'll ever hear Zach Wilson's name again. That feels a little hyperbolic to me. I think we're going to hear his name at least for the first few weeks of the season in New York.
We'll hear it for his rookie contract because we heard it
Mm-hmm.
for Sam Darnold, and then Sam Darnold got kicked out of town. But was it Sam Darnold's fault or was it the coaching? Like, we'll find out. But we're going to hear about Zach Wilson for at least 3 years. We'll see what happens after that.
I mean, it could be a Dwayne Haskins situation, so it may not even be 3 years.
I'm rooting for him, man. Let's send him good energy, though. I like the kid. Great athlete. I'm hoping.
I'm not trying to talk down. I'm just saying that there's a happy medium between 3 years and never again, and that's just what I'm looking for. Charlie, what's up, man? Happy Friday. Haven't heard much from you.
No, I just we shouldn't be rooting against Zach Wilson to start.
I'm not rooting against anybody.
All right, I think we'll see him for a little bit. I think we have a little bias against number 2 picks on this show. Just my personal opinion, but
why? Because the number 2 pick on this show didn't pan out.
Could be that's one of the reasons.
Yeah, I think it's less about the number 2 pick. Again, I think it's less about Zach Wilson.
It's a Jets.
More the land. Going here, I think we would all be sitting here and saying like, "Oh,
yeah, that's fair." The Jets are a mess. The Jets are just a mess.
Okay, moving on. 1 and 2, no surprises. 3, talked about Lance. 4, Pitts. I think that we figured that was going to be the pick. If not, if they were going to pick a tackle, that Falcons would have traded back. This is where things get interesting because we all went with but when we did our drafts, guy, and when I did my individual ones, and when you guys can be honest here with yours too, I went with my heart over my head over my heart. No, my heart over my head, because my heart told me that Penei Sewell was going to get drafted 5th because that's the best possible pick.
That's I was exactly thinking the same thing. I was thinking logically rather than all right, what are they actually going to do? It would make so much.
Right. Exactly.
It would make so much more sense for the Bengals to get Penei Sewell than Jamar Chase, and I love Jamar Chase. I think he's a stud. He's going to be a baller, but if they can't protect Burrow, what good is it? They have Tyler Boyd, they have T. Higgins. You have good receiving core already, and I know that Burrow and Jamar Chase balled out together at LSU, but again, Burrow got rocked a lot last year. So if they can't protect that star young QB, it's not going to be better.
Every torn ligament you can have.
Yeah, literally the number one thing they should have done in this draft is protect your franchise quarterback, and they got him another wide receiver. And again, love Jamar Chase. It's just this wasn't a priority pick.
Yeah. So anyway, it wasn't a surprise, but it was a disappointment, I think is the best way of putting it. Wide receivers we talk about on the show all the time are a dime a dozen, and in this pick, not a surefire, but a pretty close to already readily able Hall of Famer in Penei Sewell gets passed up on for Jamar Chase, who could just be another wide receiver, or could be a phenomenal wide receiver, but it could take some time, and it may not be for this team.
Yeah, that's tough. On that point, I agree with you guys. In my mock drafts, I continued to have Jamar Chase as the pick for accuracy purposes, but I also believe that, and we've talked about it on the show, I also believe that Penei Sewell was the correct pick, but Jamar Chase was always my guy to the Bengals because of the Ferrari, because of Joe Burrow, because of what they did at LSU, and because they can maybe pick somebody else up in the second round. That being said, to Ryan's point, primarily about wide receivers being a dime a dozen and trying to go elsewhere with that offensive tackle he always talks about, I think of 2 of the best, actually, I'll put in 3 of the best wide receivers of all time. And there's no question about it. They're either top 5, top 10 latest. Randy Moss, Terrell Owens, Calvin Johnson. And I'll throw Julio Jones in there as well. You can even put Antonio Brown, whatever. All of these guys, didn't win a Super Bowl. And what I'm saying is, they were not the player to put a team over the top, even though they were all world. They were literally generational talents, literally the best at their position for the entire decade that they played at their position, dominated. And they were not the player to put a team over the top. So while I think it's important to have a dominant receiver, they got T. Higgins last year. Tyler Boyd never gets talked about, and I think he's a great wide receiver.
He was awesome last year.
Auden Tate is 6'5", 6'6". He's excellent as well. A 7th rounder who I think is going to be a great production guy there too. They didn't need the Ferrari and Ja'Marr Chase. I know why they did it. He showed up wearing orange shoes, and I texted you guys. I was like, well, the pick is in. He's got orange shoes on, so lock it up. But to that point, I mean, unfortunately, the wide receiver, if you're not Jerry Rice, the wide receiver is not the difference maker, more or less, unfortunately. And look, another guy behind me here, Larry Fitzgerald, Hall of Famer, wasn't able to get that Super Bowl victory. So, unfortunately, I think we're gonna be talking about this for a very long time. That being said, I hope Penei Sewell doesn't fan out in his landing spot. But we'll keep going, Jonathan. Go ahead.
I don't think that he will. I'm happy with Penei Sewell landed. We'll get to that as we move on here. Might as well just go pick by pick.
Let's go in order, yeah.
All of them, which is sort of what everybody's doing. This is draft coverage week, basically, starting from now through I guess until really OTAs begin and summer conditioning. Jalen Waddle goes 6 to the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins have wide receivers. The Dolphins had running backs. Dolphins need defense. There were a lot of defensive backs. I mean, Patrick Surtain went 9. They could have taken Patrick Surtain. They could have taken a linebacker. They could have taken an offense. They could have taken a Penei Sewell. But they went with Jalen Waddle, who we like to say, the Tyreek Hill comparison, like, that's fine. He's fast and he's small and he's a downfield threat. But he doesn't have Pat Mahomes throwing him the football. And as we saw in the Super Bowl, when the quarterback, even if he, as transcendent as he could be, is neutralized, your wide receivers, your tight end may be kind of irrelevant. And that's why here, Jalen Waddle to me is a questionable pick for a guy in Tua Tagovailoa, who hasn't really done much downfield, right? Do you really need to get a guy who hasn't really had the opportunity or had the able-bodiedness to go and throw the football 30, 40, 50 yards down the field consistently? It just doesn't make sense for me with the 6th pick. But what do you guys think?
I just think it's weird that they traded up for that pick, right? Earlier in this month or
yes.
Yeah. I just think that, like, trading up and then also signing Will Fuller, I just think it doesn't really make sense. Like, all right, Will Fuller's an established wide receiver. He's good. Like, you got your guy. Like, all right, now
Devontae Parker.
And they got Devontae Parker, who balled out last year. You got Myles Gaskin, who's pretty solid. Like, all right, make other parts of your team better. Get a linebacker. Get Penei Sewell. Protect Tua. It's just like, again, I think Jalen Waddle's a stud. I think he's awesome. He's speedy, like Tyreek Hill, and him and Tua played together at Bama. But I think these teams are looking too much into their college times together and how successful they were with one another, rather than, I guess, getting a need for their team.
Yeah. Sky, any thoughts on this pick?
No, I mean, it was surprising. Penei Sewell's the right pick. I mean, as soon as the Bengals took Ja'Marr Chase on the live stream, we were like, okay, well, we'll lock in Penei Sewell. And that's what I had at mock drafts. I had Ja'Marr Chase going and then Penei Sewell falling, or Penei Sewell going to the Bengals and Ja'Marr Chase going to the Dolphins. That was locked in. It was just who was going to go where. And Miami had traded it up and they got that pick from the Eagles earlier in the spring, and ended up going Jalen Waddle. And Charlie's right. I mean, they brought Will Fuller in to be what they want Jalen Waddle to be. And I know the Tua connection, I just not very excited. They just lost Eric Flowers too, who I know is not amazing. He might even be a rotational backup guy in Washington at this point, but you lose a big offensive tackle and arguably the best one on the board, maybe that we've seen in a while, is literally there for the taking, and you pass on him to get another weapon. There's only one football, right? So Tua has the ball every single play. Jalen Waddle might have the ball 9 plays a game. That's the difference. It was surprising.
That'd be a lot. That'd be a lot.
9 plays a game if they're running jet sweeps.
Yeah, I was going to say that'd be a lot for him.
That's all I see.
I'm saying he's looking at 3 to 5 times a game.
All right. before we move on to the 7th pick in Panay Sewell, we want to thank one of our premier sponsors, Sunfair, personalized delivered healthy meals. Guys, if you want to look like that guy, trust me, we all want to look like that guy. I mean, look at those abs. I spent 25 minutes just supersetting abs yesterday. Just abs. Like typically I'll spend like 40 minutes on abs, but it won't be superset, it'll be staggered. And like they still don't look that good. And Ryan hasn't done a day of abs. What's the difference? Well, I'm not eating Sunfair every single day like Ryan is. I need to. And that's what I'm sitting here telling you about, because that is one of my goals, is to build Sunfair into my plan so I can start looking like that. Like the Ryan D. Leaf man that is in that top right. I guess, yeah, your right, my left corner. Sunfair delivers personalized healthy meals right to your door. Head over to sunfair.com. Select Carl Farrow after you sign up as your representative. Tell them that you heard from the RDL show. You'll get 10% off your first order on sunfair.com. Limited to the LA and Phoenix areas. Big thanks to Sunfair for supporting the Ryan D. Leaf show. Absent of Ryan Leaf today, him and his abs are making an appearance on the Rich Eisen show. Well, I assume he kept his shirt on, so maybe not his abs. He may have.
I did watch the program this morning, and his shirt was in fact on the entire time.
It was on. Okay,
Yeah.
well, I know that he had a clothing sponsor today, so I don't think they would have been very happy if the shirt that they so graciously gave him ended up on the Rich Eisen stage. So, 7th pick in the draft, Panay Sewell from Oregon. We're gonna have to speed things up, guys, because we're 23 minutes in and we're at pick 7, and we have other
Let's
stuff.
roll.
All right, we talked a lot about Panay Sewell. We know I feel like everybody in the world knows about Panay Sewell. We don't really have to go too far into it. It's a great pick.
It's a steal for the Lions. It's a steal for the Lions.
It is. It's a steal for the Lions. Jared Goff is there. The second Oregon offensive tackle now taken by the Lions in the last 5 seasons. Tyrell Crosby was taken as well. Of course, he was the big key in protecting Marcus Mariota during his Heisman campaign, and he's been phenomenal in Detroit, which is why he hasn't moved anywhere. They've been re-signing him. So now you pair him up with Panay Sewell, and man, do you have some big boys up front from the Ducks. So love the pick. Glad he fell. You guys have any final thoughts on Panay Sewell?
No, it was a gift.
J.C. Horn. So we all knew that at 8, the Carolina Panthers were looking for a defensive player. They extended Sam Darnold, and they picked up his 5th-year option, $18.8 million. So good for Sam. I hope that he works out in Carolina. Everybody was thinking, okay, if they're going to take a defensive player, it might be a linebacker. They decided to go cornerback, but they didn't take Patrick Surtain. They took J.C. Horn, who's the biggest, most physical cornerback of the top cornerbacks in this draft out of South Carolina. All of the highlights they showed of J.C. Horn last year, guys, or last night, were against Auburn. They didn't show any other highlights of J.C. Horn, which makes me wonder how effective he really was in the SEC, because he was really only locking up Auburn receivers. But regardless, big physical back, should be a solid start in the secondary for Carolina.
Yeah, that honestly, those clips I thought did not do justice for J.C. Horn. Dude's a beast. And to come off the board first, I think, is surprising with everyone having Patrick Surtain. But without Caleb Farley's back issues, this is a very tight race for the top 3 corners in a deep corner class. J.C. Horn's an animal. And I don't have the stats in front of me, I apologize. But I did see early in the draft process, it was him versus the top wideout or the top pass catcher, because Kyle Pitts is involved in this for each team and each matchup that he had in the SEC this year. I mean, Jamar Chase, Kyle Pitts, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, Terrace Marshall, you name it. J.C. Horn did work on him. And, he didn't win every battle, but he certainly slowed every single one of these pro prospects, and most of them first rounders, down. And if he can stay healthy and pan out in Carolina, they have 9 consecutive defensive draft picks. Last year they had 8. All 8 of them were defensive. Now they have another defensive, the top corner in the draft. Huge pickup for the Carolina Panthers.
That just shows you how dominant SEC offenses are. It just shows you just how dominant that it's jokes.
And so much of the SEC, and honestly, let's just wrap right in here to Patrick Surtain as well, the next pick with Alabama.
Really quickly before, to set that up, Sky, because I just wanted to mention, so when J.C. Horn was taken, everybody who was paying attention to this draft the way that we have been covering it, we're thinking, okay, well, Jerry Jones is sitting there at 10, ready to go for Patrick Surtain, because you know that he was the guy circled on their list. And then come the Denver Broncos. And what happens, Sky? Now, please proceed.
Yeah. Feel free to jump in the comments, ladies and gentlemen. We do have the question of the day, which is, what has your team done in round one? Feel free to jump in there. South Carolina, Alabama, SEC. Yo, the wide receivers are pro ready. The secondary is pro ready. The defenses, offenses are as well. So these guys come in ready and prepared. Patrick Surtain, his pops played in the NFL for a while as well. So you have great. I mean, JC Horn's dad, Joe Horn, also played wide receiver. So he has that different mentality. So I thought these are two great picks. The Broncos were in touch with the Aaron Rodgers conversation, which, you know, again, is kind of its own topic. But they could have gone quarterback there, and they didn't. They went with Patrick Surtain, who, in my opinion, is the best player available at that point. And Lucas, who is my co-host for my fantasy football podcast, was on the live stream with me after the fact, and he was like, "Yo, we have our fourth cornerback. Why did we draft we're stacked on defense. What are we doing?" And it turns out that actually 3 of their top cornerbacks right now are not under contract after this season. So if they clean house, they still have Patrick Surtain to hold down the secondary, which I think is a great chess move, thinking ahead for the Broncos, and they can patch holes later on. Broncos, man, if quarterback works out with Teddy or Locke or whoever, the Broncos could surprise in the AFC West, which is a great division building slowly.
Yeah, I also wasn't I'll be really quick. I wasn't surprised by the pick because, like, Vic Fangio's just a very big defensive coach and defensive minded, so it just made sense as well.
Absolutely.
All right. And the Eagles, Dallas sold the pick to the Eagles moving in 10 because Surtain was taken. We thought that Devontae Smith would go to the Cowboys in that position. Instead, he goes to the Eagles, a team that desperately needs wide receivers. As far as wide receivers going in the first round goes, to teams that, like, I'm okay with the Eagles taking Devontae Smith. I just am. They need wide receivers.
I think it was the right pick. It was the right pick.
Any quips there, Sky?
No, it was great. It was a great landing spot.
All
That's
right.
what they need, and it fell in the lap.
Biggest pick, in my opinion, of the first round came at 11 when the Giants traded back to the Chicago Bears. The Bears traded up and took a one Justin Fields, who I think, as you see by the man below, Charlie Moss, made a lot of people very happy. I think made everybody very happy.
Yeah,
Makes me very happy.
Well, it was the pick of the draft. It was fully the pick of the draft. I was just scared that the Bears were going to mess it up by drafting Mac Jones. Nothing against Mac Jones. Just don't see him working out in Chicago. But this is definitely a step in the right direction for the Chicago Bears.
Again, same thing. Mac Jones could be kind of Andy Dalton, kind of Nick Foles. You have those guys on your roster already.
Yeah.
Both of them are way past their prime, obviously. However, you have this similar quarterback. That was my qualm with Jimmy G and all that stuff. Getting Justin Fields at pick 11 when he was in talks for the number 2 quarterback in the draft, maybe a top 3 pick, getting him at number 11 is another steal. And I think and look, the Bears moved up from 20 to 11. They know, head coach and GM in Chicago know that they missed on Mitch Trubisky, and they need to correct this season. If they don't, they're out of there. So
100%.
best believe
100%.
Justin Fields will be starter latest week 2.
You think so? You think so? Week 2?
Week 1 probably, but week 2 latest.
Wow.
Justin Herbert him. I'm not saying that Andy Dalton's going to get poked with a syringe incorrectly and have to sit out a game, but I think we'll see a similar rise from Justin Fields that we saw from the Justins are going to dominate the league.
Love it.
Allen Robinson had a good night with some Athletic Brew last night. Before we get to Micah Parsons at 12, why don't you tell us what Allen Robinson was drinking last night, Squagwaska?
Oh, I mean, it's pretty obvious. Allen Robinson was into the Athletic Brews. I got to be honest, man. I got a little carried away, and thank goodness, Athletic Brew is non-alcoholic beer, because I had about 4 of them last night during my 4-hour live stream. I was on with this show. I was on after the fact for the rest of the draft there. So I had a great time. Love Athletic Brew. Y'all have mentioned every time I get the opportunity to rep them, I do. I live in the Northwest. We are known for our delicious hops, delicious microbrews, craft booze, and this is some of the best craft beer out there that's non-alcoholic. For those of you like myself, like Ryan, that choose not to drink alcohol because of the after effects and the negativities that can come with drinking alcohol, we prefer a non-alcoholic beverage, which is Athletic Brew. Right here is the Run Wild IPA. Trying to get the glare on there for you. Bam,
What, you have
absolutely
that for your
delicious.
morning coffee? That one's already killed.
Yeah,
Are you
I'm down
pre-gaming
2
the show
already.
today, Sky?
I'm down 2 already. We're good to go. Look, it's day 2 of the draft. All right. I woke up feeling fresh. I had 4 of them last night. I woke up feeling fresh, got a workout in. I'm ready to go, man. Athletic Brew, absolutely delicious. Make sure you go to their website, athleticbrew.com. Tell them Ryan D. Leaf Show sent you 10% off of your first 2 6-packs. Go to Athletic Brew and enjoy some non-alcoholic brews, just like myself and Allen Robinson celebrating the Chi-Town Bears moving up to get Justin Fields. What a steal. Charlie, take care of my guy.
Oh, he will be taken care of.
Micah Parsons coming in at 12. Dallas trades
Great
back
pick.
for a pick that changed 4 hands over the course of the last few months. San Francisco, Miami, Philadelphia, and then finally to Dallas. Everybody thought that Jerry Jones, being pissed off that Patrick Surtain was taken, would end up going with a wide receiver. Well, he held his tongue, and they made a great decision reloading in their front 7, drafting Micah Parsons out of Penn State. He's a beast, very Chase Young-esque, and I think that it's going to be a really solid defensive season for Dallas. Now we'll see what happens offensively. There are still plenty of offensive pieces I think that they could take as we move forward in the draft in the later rounds that could pan out. But
if I'm a Cowboys fan, I'm thrilled at this because what should have been a Hall of Fame talent in Sean Lee, who just got decimated by injuries like Luke Kuechly, unfortunately. Sean Lee is retired. Leighton Vander Esch is an absolute animal, but he is also plagued with injuries too. 2 incredible linebackers that can't stay healthy. They go back to Penn State and get an absolutely phenomenal linebacker from Linebacker University, right? I mean, Ohio State has something to say about that for sure, but Micah Parsons should be great. Another pick that I think fell in their lap. I thought Denver might take him earlier. He didn't. The Cowboys capitalized, and I think that's an excellent pick for them.
Yeah, I think you guys covered it. I got nothing else to say.
Rashawn Slater goes to the Chargers. Everybody had the fantasy that they would move up to take Penei Sewell. Apparently, Penei Sewell could have even dropped to them with where he was taken at 7. But instead, they go with Rashawn Slater, offensive tackle, Northwestern. Dude's a beast. Go watch his tape against Micah Parsons. Go watch his tape against Chase Young. I mean, this guy, you talk about Big Ten defense, right? And you talk about the linebackers coming from these universities. And Rashawn Slater's had to protect his quarterback against most of them over his 4-year career at Northwestern. So big pick. The biggest position in need for the Chargers has been filled. They have their secondary intact with James coming back. They have their pretty much ready to go. And they have their offense. Also, the core is back and ready to rock for next year. So they filled that one spot that was in desperate need with Rashawn Slater, protect Justin Herbert and his weak side. And the Chargers are going to be really fun. I mean, they were fun last year, but this gives them that extra layer of protection that they'll need to let just absolutely unleash Justin Herbert in the next, forever seasons. Who knows at this point?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, he held his ground against Chase Young and those other players that you were saying in college. He's ready for the pros and ready to protect Justin Herbert.
Great pick.
Yep, Elijah Vera Tucker, guard, Jets. I love the pick. Shout out to a fellow Trojan. I didn't go to USC, but I grew up a fan, so honorary.
Yeah. No, I like it. I was going to say back-to-back drafts. You get Mekhi Becton last year. Now you get Elijah Vera Tucker. You make it a priority to protect your quarterback so he doesn't turn into Sammy D. Smart move by the Jets.
And another good clubhouse guy. I think it's really important when you bring in intelligent, young, enthusiastic players. Everything that's been said in the pre-draft process about Elijah Vera Tucker is he's a great young man, smart, well-mannered, ready to play football. And I think that bringing that into a culture like New York and with the Jets, who have been down for a long time, I think is a nice upbeat energy there. So great pick. And we do need to mention the Vikings traded back, swap picks with the Jets. We'll get into the Vikings later, but the Jets moved up to get him here at this pick and move the Vikings out.
They have always needed offensive tackles and guards in New York. They finally go and they get a great one. The Jets love drafting USC big boys. I mean, they drafted Leonard Williams, who panned out, no longer on the team. They drafted Elijah Vera Tucker, who's going to pan out, probably won't be on the team. We'll see what happens. All right, 15, Mac Jones, Patriots. Everybody saw the meme going around comparing him to Tom Brady. Yep. Does that mean that he's guaranteed 6 championships, 7 championships? Maybe, probably not. But we know the relationship Nick Saban has with Bill Belichick, and I think that of all of the places for Mac Jones to go, this is probably the most beneficial one for his career. And I think that if he acts the way that the experts are saying that he's going to work out, a lot of the experts are saying this is also very beneficial for New England. Guys, your thoughts real quick.
Yeah, I think it's the perfect spot for Mac Jones. I mean, going from Saban to Belichick, it's like nothing. I think it's gonna be perfect.
14 players have gone directly from Nick Saban in college to Bill Belichick through the draft.
Crazy.
Easily the most from a head coach in college to a head coach in the pros. 14 players from Nick Saban in college to Bill Belichick. Seamless transition, Charlie, as you mentioned, similar locker room vibes, similar tight-knit, all business mentalities, and those players that thrive in one system with Nick Saban thrive with Bill Belichick and get it. Again, I mentioned it in the previous in the opening. I like this pick a lot for the Patriots. I don't think it would have been good for the Niners. I think it's great for the Patriots, and I wish Mac Jones well.
Yeah, I mean, of all the offenses, his mobility is really the biggest knock on him. That's probably the better offense for him to be in down the road. All right. Zaven Collins taken by the Cardinals. Great pick out of Tulsa. Big boy. You should have seen him in the opening game against Oklahoma State. He was fantastic on that offensive line. Yeah, Cardinals. I mean, they picked up Isaiah Simmons last year, right?
Yeah,
what's his last name?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So they drafted him as linebacker. Now they have Zaven Collins. They obviously signed J.J. Watt. This team is locked and loaded with. And we thought that they would go and draft a defensive back because they had to fill Patrick Peterson's role, but there are still some very good options on the board. We'll see what happens later in the draft. Let's move here. 17 was a pick that a lot of people were upset about. Alex Leatherwood, tackle out of Alabama. What are the Raiders doing? He was 62nd overall on the ESPN big board. A lot of people were saying, even though he's 360 something and runs a 4.6 40, there's just a lot of questions surrounding his consistency at tackle.
Yeah.
It's just a Raiders pick. Like they gutted their offensive line, so they have to make this pick, right?
That's literally the only explanation. The problem is there's, in my opinion, again, I'm not a professional scout. In my opinion, there's at least 4 offensive tackles that I have ahead of him. Yes, he's massive. Yes, he played in the SEC. Yes, he played for Alabama. Yes, he's athletic. But unfortunately, this is a Raiders pick. They need offensive line, and I don't hate the position. They could have, first of all, got this guy in the second round, probably.
Easily.
And they could have gotten one of these other offensive tackles that I think just would have been a better move. He was the only player on outside of Daniel Jeremiah's top 50 players drafted in the first round.
Wow.
Raiders.
Well, this is actually back-to-back drafts where they reach for someone. Last year they reached for Damon Arnett out of Ohio State.
Alabama, dude. It's the Alabama effect, man. It just
Damon Arnett was Ohio State.
No, sure, but they went for Henry Ruggs last year.
Yeah,
the same thing.
Exactly. But I'm just saying it's back-to-back drafts where they went for a reach when they could have sat back a bit and probably taken them in later rounds.
Yeah, I mean, look, we'll see what happens.
Nothing against him. Nothing against him. Maybe he'll pan out to be really good.
Against anybody in this draft. It's just, look, if I was Alex Leatherwood, man, my life would be so different if I was his 6'8", 360 pounds and a beast. But good for him being taken at 17. I hope that he pans out and hope maybe the Raiders, maybe they knew something that we didn't. I don't know. All right, let's move on here. Jalen Phillips, best edge rusher, goes to Miami. Love the pick. Lock that defensive line up to apply some pressure. I think that their defensive pressure rating last year was amongst the worst against opposing quarterbacks. Was amongst the worst in the league. So Miami going after Phillips was a really solid way to hopefully start filling that hole and creating some more pressure defensively against the opposition.
Great pick. Cool. One of my favorites is the next one.
Everybody said that Washington football team needs a quarterback. They probably will draft a quarterback, but it didn't come in the first round. There's still plenty of good talent on the board to develop behind Fitzpatrick and Kyle Allen out there. So they decided to go with Jamin Davis, linebacker out of Kentucky. Absolutely. Best Kentucky defense we've seen in my lifetime. And that came this season in the SEC, and it was largely due to Davis's impact.
Yeah, and again, nobody talks about Kentucky for football purposes at all, but they are in the SEC, so whether we notice it or not, they're playing all the same NFL prospects, and Jamin Davis absolutely put Kentucky Wildcats football on the map this season. Basketball program took a dip. The football program spiked this season, and Jamin Davis was a huge part of that. I love this for the football team. Look, Their defensive line, in my opinion, outside of maybe my Niners, is already the best defensive line in football. They have a improving secondary. They needed to fill that middle linebacker, edge rusher hybrid position. They did that well with Jamin Davis. I love this pick here. That because they couldn't get a quarterback, I love this pick here for Washington. And here's the deal, man. I'm not about their front office. I've never been a Dan Snyder fan in Washington, but I'm a huge Ron Rivera fan, and I think he's doing all the right things. Boss is in.
All right, so we'll stop at 19, and we'll welcome the boss man, Ryan Leaf, into the quad box here. What's going on? Rich Ryan D. Leaf Eisen joining the show.
Yeah, I mean, 7th time hosting this year, so
that's big time. Congrats, that's awesome.
Yeah, keep it going. Good show, a lot of talk about. Put a package together around the 5 teams that just made a mess of their first round. The Cincinnati Bengals, the Dolphins with their first pick, the Philadelphia Eagles. Philadelphia Eagles was absolutely the worst thing you can do. They were at 6. They moved to 12. They go to 10 and give up a bunch to take Devontae Smith, a wide receiver. And then you have the Steelers and the Jacksonville Jaguars at 24 and 25 taking running backs for absolutely no inexplicable reason. So those are the 5 teams that I thought had probably the worst first rounds. Luckily for the Dolphins, they made up for it by taking Jalen Phillips, an edge rusher, there at 18 to make up for it. Giants, I think, walked away with the biggest haul of the night. They got who they wanted and moved back. Justin Fields to the Bears. The big pick happened after we got off the air last night. Of course, perfect timing.
So let's go through some of these. So you said that there was no logical reasoning for Etienne and Harris to be picked. I agree with Harris and the Steelers, but you got to reunite Etienne with his boy Trevor Lawrence. That's a logical reason.
They could have been the second round.
No.
Games?
But the Jaguars.
Hold on, Charlie. Let me finish my thought. Is it logical from a football perspective? No. Is it fun for fans? Is it going to be fun for Lawrence and Etienne? Absolutely. And you're Jacksonville. You're going to win 4 games anyways this year, whether you pick Etienne or somebody else in that spot. So might as well have some fun with it, right?
Okay, but organizations aren't looking for fun. They're looking to win and accomplish their goals. And drafting
this was a fun pick. This pick was for fun.
Okay, but drafting a running back when you have so many other needs is just like what are you doing? Like improve your offensive line.
I have to use sanitizer to get that stink off my hands here, Jonathan Rifkin.
They didn't need Etienne. James Robinson rushed for 1,000 yards last year.
No, and what Urban Meyer said, you heard what Urban Meyer called it, right?
No.
They drafted him as a 3rd down back. You don't draft a 3rd down back with a 25th overall.
You don't draft
pick,
a 3rd round back into
first. Urban is still in the mindset that he can stockpile, like in college. 135 players on my team. He's going to figure out pretty soon and pretty quickly, these guys get paid, and there's a salary cap. And you only get to keep 53 of them on the roster before you have to make cuts. So it was I do not understand it one bit. Najee Harris too. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So
all right.
Those are the 5 teams. Those are the 5 teams that we gave the bat to on the Rich Eisen show this morning. Just do the right thing. Just do the right thing, and they didn't.
The Bears did the right things drafting Fields at 11. You said that the biggest pick of the draft, Ryan, was right after we came off. What was your reaction? How do you feel about? Obviously, you should probably feel pretty good about that pick, right?
Yeah, I again still surprised it was Trey Lance at 3 and not Justin Fields. I never was on the. I like you guys was never on the Mac Jones train for this. He was never picked to. Kyle Shanahan was just going to become a kingmaker all of a sudden by trading away things, and now he becomes a top 5 pick. I think he fell perfectly. When the first mock draft came out, Mac Jones was picked to go 28th to the Saints, and he goes 15 to the Patriots. Something that was actually my mock draft call yesterday. Yeah, I think that the Bears had to do something. They gave up a lot, but if he develops into a guy like they probably should have drafted Deshaun Watson a few years back, if he develops into that guy, well worth everything they traded away to get him to move up to 11.
Penei Sewell dropping to 7 to the Lions. A gift for the Lions. You talk about the Bengals and the Dolphins getting the bat. Talk about 5, 6, and 7.
Every opportunity to do the right thing there at Cincinnati at 5, even Miami at 6. both those situations, you have fragile quarterbacks that are coming off major surgeries, major injuries. One was beat up a lot in college, wasn't very mobile, was a pocket passer. The other one just got sacked more than anybody and got beat up last year. And you add a receiver, you better hope you're throwing to Ja'Marr Chase at the line of scrimmage or behind the line of scrimmage a ton, because that's how you're going to have to get him the ball. You're not going to have time to sit back there and throw the football. So I think it was a big mistake. You could have got a wide receiver down the line. They may be able to get an offensive lineman in Tevin. I forget. Tevin Higgins, is that what's his name? Tevin
Collins.
Tevin Collins out of Oklahoma State.
Tevin Jenkins. I'm sorry. Tevin
Jenkins out of Oklahoma State there early in the second. That might be, if the Bengals are able to do that, then I'll walk it back a little bit, because I thought of him as a first round kind of guy. But we'll see. As for the Dolphins, they just got rid of an offensive lineman in Eric Flowers. They needed to bolster that. They needed to bolster that for a guy that needs some confidence, and he didn't have it last year. And adding Jalen Waddle is kind of like adding Henry Ruggs to the Raiders. He's a speedster, but okay. I don't think he's going to be much of an impact this year for the team. And Penei Sewell falls right into the laps of the Detroit Lions and becomes the protector of Jared Goff, which I think if you are, I guess, fantasy fans out there, right, you got to be pretty happy with that, because Jared Goff's going to be upright a lot more. And when he deals, he can deal it around.
Ryan, I got one more for you here. Oakland. Las Vegas Raiders, Alex Leatherwood, only player outside of Daniel Jeremiah's top 50 to go in the first round. I like the offensive line move, but as we just mentioned before you popped on, in my opinion, there's 3 tackles at least ahead of him that they could have gotten. Why Leatherwood, and how do you feel about it?
They loved him, period, right? So like I said, if guys, Mike Mayock has a way. Cleveland Farrell a couple years ago at defensive end, where no one saw him that high. Those types of things Mayock and Gruden have done, where it's been a bit inexplicable, and they felt like that's our guy, and we're going to go get him. So, he's an Alabama, alum. He's one of the 6 that were drafted in the first round. So, they feel confident with the guy. We'll see if he amounts to anything, and if it was just a reach for reach's sake.
How proud are you of Jerry Jones, Ryan? Instead of pulling the trigger and taking Devontae Smith at 10, he traded back and took Micah Parsons at 12.
Great pick.
Got what they wanted, right? Got what they wanted, and got to kind of put a little, I told you so to the Eagles, because guess what? They knew the Eagles were going to go out there and go after a wide receiver, which, there's a lot of holes to fill in Philadelphia. I don't think the first one to fill is a wide receiver after they did it a year ago, where you could build that resume down the line. You don't know what Jason Peters is doing. You don't know what Lane Johnson is going to be at. You don't know who's going to rush alongside Fletcher Cox. Those are spots that you could have filled with that. Instead, Howie. You go from 6 to 12 to 10. I don't get it. I don't get it. Dallas wins that one, gets an extra 3rd round pick. Watch them add a solid wide receiver in the 3rd round with that pick, and just kind of dangle it in front of Philly fans for the next 10 years. Watch.
Very interesting move. What else here, Ryan, stands out to you? Maybe towards the back end, there were, like you said, Najee Harris, Etienne, obviously the questionable picks, but Newsome going 26 to me, that seemed a little low, but a great pick, a value pick for Cleveland at the end of the first round.
I thought they were going to go safety. They went corner, and then, at the end of the draft, Tampa Bay says, we're not going to move. We're going to stay right here. We're going to take the defensive lineman from Washington. They have a guy in Vita Vea already there from Washington. They like those players that came through the Chris Peterson system, and essentially threw a little hot sauce on the end of the draft there with that. Just like we did last night when we ate our asses off of wings and eggs and whatever. We added Bomb Banana to it. Seekthespice.com, all right? Go there. 2 versions, Muy Muy, or the more spice, or the more mild version. Red logo, white logo on the bottles, of course. The website, seekthespice.com. That's seekthespice.com, all one word. Today, you can receive 10% off your first order by using the promo code LEAF, LEAF, like on a tree, at checkout. Try it, everybody. You'll love it. Made from real bananas, not banana flavoring.
Ryan, can I get one more in here before you go? Green
Yeah.
Bay Packers, not necessarily getting into the rabbit hole of the Aaron Rodgers saga, but going with Eric Stokes versus a wide receiver or other positions. How did you feel? I love the player, but how did you feel about them going corner there out of Georgia, Eric Stokes at 29?
I mean, if you're building the defense, that's always going to help Aaron Rodgers. But the funny thing about this, when this huge story comes out, it's been about how they haven't taken care of him. They've never drafted an offensive player in the first round, ever. They did last year. Jordan Love.
His replacement.
So we had a couple guests on the show today that lamented about what this is going to be, and they feel like, Green Bay's not going to trade him. So this is going to be on Aaron Rodgers to back up what he's supposedly said. Now, we don't know for sure, right? We haven't heard from Aaron Rodgers personally. He's going to be at the Kentucky Derby this weekend. There's a very good chance that a microphone gets thrown in front of his face. We don't know. We'll see how he responds to this, but we have not heard anything from him personally. They've worked things out before. He was unwilling to, restructure his contract. That's a big part of it, right? He's like, unless it's going to be in the way he wants it to be. He's the reigning MVP. If I were the Packers, what I would have done is I would have packaged Jordan Love to the Broncos and left Aaron Rodgers out of the conversation completely. But the question is, did they actually go to him earlier in the summer and say, or early in the offseason say, hey, we're going to trade you this offseason? If that's the case, and that's the way this story first started out, and then came back a little bit later and we're like, no, we're not going to now. And continue to jerk him around, and then to draft a defensive player, almost like just throwing it in your face, like, fuck you, Aaron. We're going to do what we want to do, And we had a caller on who's a Packers fan and says the general manager's done a good job. He's giving them late round guys that have been productive. And I'm like, the reason you've been in 2 NFC back-to-back championships is because of Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Okay, not because of the late round guys you got and helped out things. Okay. Second pick last year was A.J. Dillon, who didn't even play hardly a year ago. Now, maybe he'll be a productive member this year. I don't know. They re-signed Ryan Grant.
They just re-signed Aaron Jones. They just re-signed Aaron Jones like a 3-4 year deal.
Yeah, so it's baffling. It's baffling what they continue to do. And it wouldn't surprise me, from having spent the amount of time I have with Aaron, if he and Shailene packed it all up, settled in L.A., and he tried out to be the Jeopardy host. If not, he could play golf, and his many business ventures he's invested in could have a very productive transition to civilian life. I really do
one
believe
of
that.
the most poppin', one of the liveliest little spots in Pacific Beach that I'm sure that he would love to partake in down here in San Diego. That whole Green Bay situation is fascinating, Ryan. How are you staying with us through the end, or you got to get out of here?
I got to get out of here, boys. I got to get on the road and head south, do a little NFL radio, and sign my signature probably 1,000 times.
How far south?
I'm heading to Newport Beach, Pelican Hill Resort is where I'll be.
Oh, yes. Very nice.
Ryan, before you go, last question. Any predictions or one thing you'd like to see on day 2 today that we can look forward to? One team, one player left, somebody that is still available that you would love to see land somewhere.
But just can't wait to see where Davis Mills lands. It's going to be a steal. It's going to be a steal for anybody who grabs him. Watch for Atlanta at 35. And then I liked New England if they decided not to go with Mac Jones at 15 when they were around 45 or 46. So keep your eyes open there in the second round. So yeah, Washington would be a stopping point too. So enjoy the weekend in the NFL draft, and we'll see everybody on Monday. You guys can finish off the show. Appreciate it. Thanks for everybody for watching. Man.
Have fun. Have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend. Right. Newport, I'm jealous, man. I don't know. Why am I jealous? I live in San Diego. Newport's though. On a day like today, where it's 70 degrees.
Newport is nice.
Oh, it's
Newport's
beautiful.
nice.
Balboa Island.
California is full of beaches all the way down, but Newport is one of the top.
Newport down to Imperial Bay, which is South San Diego. You're not going to find one bad beach, not one. All right, 4 minutes here on a fun Friday, guys. We went through basically the important parts of the draft. We got Ryan back on here to talk about, one more thing, guys. 27, Rashad Bateman goes to the Ravens. I don't hate that pick. I don't hate that pick.
I love the pick for NFL.
I
I just want to make sure that if Lamar Jackson becomes Louisville Lamar Jackson, this is an excellent pick. If he's Baltimore Ravens Lamar Jackson, Rashad Bateman's going to collect
dust. It won't
dust.
matter. Because realistically, if he is Baltimore Ravens Lamar Jackson, the only pick that matters that isn't a non-skill position player is tight end. That's what it feels like, right?
Yeah. Rob Berger, have a great weekend, brother.
Rob, have a wonderful weekend, man.
That's interesting. Rob chimed in on the TCK live stream too. I got him some fantasy advice. That's interesting. I mean, I think Rashad Bateman is an absolutely phenomenal wide receiver. He's gonna progress well. It just becomes a volume situation because they run the ball 3,000 times in the last handful of years. I mean, like what Greg Roman does. It's very simple. Mobile quarterback, run the football. And he's been very successful for a very long time doing just that. And that's not conducive to wide receiver play. Jonathan, before we get out of here, I would like to throw out just a couple of names of best available and maybe just get your guys' thoughts on any of these players moving into day 2. I'll rally them off really quickly and just get your guys' thoughts and we'll get out. Best available, in my opinion, Alabama, Christian Barmore. I thought he was going to go to Tampa Bay with that last pick, but they passed on him. Still available, great interior defensive lineman from Alabama. Best edge rusher, Azeez Ojulari from Georgia. Best offensive tackle, in my opinion, Tevin Jenkins. Ryan mentioned him from Oklahoma State. Asante Samuel from Florida State, still available. Top corner left, in my opinion. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah out of Notre Dame, best linebacker available. Thought he was going to go in the first round to the Raiders, didn't. Elijah Moore, who the Packers should have picked from Ole Miss, top slot receiver. A team needs that interior wide receiver. Elijah Moore's a beast. Maybe Tennessee gets him. And then Trayvon Moehrig out of TCU, the top safety, who I thought was going to go to Cleveland, as Ryan mentioned. So any of those names or other names like Davis Mills or whatever the quarterback or running back that you guys are excited to see land today on day 2 for rounds 2 and 3.
I mean, I'm excited to see the players. I'm excited to see what these teams do because for me, like we always predict the players, and like we talked about earlier, and I know we have to wrap it up here. We talked about how earlier on the show, my heart was telling me that they were going to pick Ja'Marr Chase because the emotional decision of picking the wide receiver that went to LSU for Burrow. My head was telling me logically, well, they need a tackle. That's when you look at it from that perspective, it makes it interesting for me because I just want to see what teams do. I love these players. Most of the guys that all the guys that we are talking about are going to be picked. So phenomenal for them. I want to know why these teams are making the decisions that they're making. If Washington football team, who hasn't taken a quarterback yet, doesn't take a quarterback in the second round, whether it's Davis Mills, Kellen Mond, Kyle Trask, and we could even go back to Sam Ehlinger and even deeper if we really want to. Why, right? And they need a quarterback. Running backs. There are teams that need running backs. They're like, this is where now in the second round, I get really intrigued with who picks who and why from a team perspective. So
it's much more. I agree with you because it's much more team oriented, like strategy than this guy fell to us. We don't really need a fourth cornerback, but Patrick Surtain's available. We got to pick him.
Right. Exactly.
It becomes we need a great right guard, or we need a great free safety or something, and then you fill that void.
And I would think besides Akeem Ojulari and Asante Samuel, it's sort of a pick 'em at this point. Like truthfully, we can get to the skill position players and talk about maybe who the best running backs are and the best wide receivers are, but at the end of the day, those are the only two guys at their respective positions left that have really created space with the middle part of that field in the position group. So I would personally also Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who most people other than the Raiders had them mocked to the Raiders. He's a great linebacker from Notre Dame. Keep an eye on him. Also, Christian Barmore from Alabama is an absolute animal. I would put him as a separator as the defensive lineman. And then Tevin Jenkins, again,
left tackle who I think is going to be a steal for anybody at this point because now he's a second-round pick and someone's just going to have him fall in their lap. So keep an eye on those guys well. And we haven't even talked about all these running backs, Michael Carter,
Next
Javonte
week.
Williams.
We got a whole
I
week
mean,
next week of coverage.
I'm ready, man. Draft week. Good job,
Draft
boys. Happy
week.
Friday.
Yes,
Happy
sir.
Friday.
Charlie, you got any fun plans this weekend as our frat boy in residence?
I got finals next week, so Rob could really use you buying some of those athletic brews, man. Pay for my tutors.
Charlie, it sounds like it's Athletic Brews this weekend then, my man. You got to stay fresh, you know what I mean?
It'll be a lot of hitting the books and chilling this weekend.
Sipping and
Attaboy.
studying, man. Sipping and studying. That's how
Hey,
you get
but
through.
I won't feel the effects, though, so it's all good.
There you
My man.
Hopefully you feel the effects of hard work and the time put in. Charlie, good luck on your finals. Sky, enjoy your weekend. For Jonathan Rifkind, who is me, and our boss, Ryan Leaf, we're out of here. Back on Monday, 12:30 Pacific time, 3:30 on the East Coast.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
Yeah, have a great weekend no matter how you've been watching, where you've been watching. We appreciate you making this part of your plans. Make sure to rate, review, and subscribe across all listening platforms thanks to the Believe Podcasting Network. And subscribe on YouTube as well. Take care, everybody. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the rest of the NFL draft. We'll get into complete coverage on the RDL show next week, Monday at 12:30 Pacific time.